Hey, what's up, guys? We got the Bram Stoker, of course. He wrote there's a book he wrote that was pretty popular somewhere along the line, I've heard. But I'm focusing here on, and first off, this collection is pretty good. The novels he did later after that whatever that book was called, but I'm focusing on the Jewel of Seven Stars. You could say his mummy novel, but not there is mummy in it, but the way it's done is very interesting. And I like this edition. Of course, they give you a little into the three novels. They give you like a little intro of what it pertains to. Also, I like that they show you the original cover, like the cover of when it was published. So you see, look at how cool. I like that. Yeah. Imagine how much this costs. Now, I've gone over the adapt one of the adaptions of this was one of my favorite Hammer films. One of my favorite mummy movies, like Blood of the Mummy's Tomb. Right? What a interesting film. And the idea here is that there's no real moving mummy in it. It's an ancient sorceress. Right? And of course, in the film, and then there's another adaptation of this I'll cover real quick. But in the film adaptations of it, there's no question that the woman is malevolent. In this story, in the original story, obviously what Stoker intended, there's a lot of mystery in it. I have to check again and see if Lovecraft had mentioned this story. There's a lot of mystery in it. It starts out literally like a mystery. An eminent Egyptologist is found attacked and out of it, like basically in a coma, by his daughter, who was raised by other people and only has recently come to live with him. So it's basically told from the point of view of a physician, a young physician who has a liking for the young woman, Miss Trelawney, right? And the mystery goes on, and you start to see there's another character comes in, and essentially the idea that there was a ancient Egyptian queen that they found the tomb on, that essentially when the man revives after being attacked, he wants to revive this mummy, this ancient sorceress, who essentially defied life and death itself back then. So it becomes a mystery story. That it's very well done. I love this old kind of writing. I know people say, "Oh, I can't read these old books. It's a bloody century. You can't. I mean, what's the point? Right? You can't read it. It makes your vocabulary better. Okay, if anything, because you have to look up words. Right? So, I mean, you can say it's kind of slow in how it opens up, but it becomes very clear that there's a connection between the daughter and this ancient sorceress. Now, if you see the different film adaptions, it's pretty much given to you. I guess I don't really want to spoil this, but I guess I sort of have. Looking at the other movie, the actress in the film version, the actress portraying the young daughter looks exactly like Queen Terra, you know. In the story, they mentioned the likeness of her. So now, what I think is interesting, my spin on this story, okay, just like that other book he did, you know, this is what horror really is. Particularly, there's a degree of there's a romantic, there's a decadent sort of movement feel to it, where the coming century. This is written in 1903. The coming century is going to be terrifying. It's not going to be what all the people think. Especially the eminent scientist in this one, the idea of reviving this ancient sorceress, to him, there's no question that this is what she wanted to do. You know, she defied the priests of her time, right? You know, they were small-minded, they were patriarchal. Right? He doesn't say that in his book, of course, the scientist. But the father comes off in this rather as a very foolish type of a scientist who thinks that they can find, you know, unlock these mysteries which should be left alone. In this one, it's just a mysterious thing you shouldn't mess with. It seems pretty clear, and it's mentioned, but it seems pretty clear that whatever this thing was that it was attacking you, that maybe you should leave it the hell alone. And that's the whole point of why I like the Mummy films. Like the ancient traditions, leave them alone. Okay, I mean, I've been to a museum. I've seen them. In the Victorian era, they used to have the wrapping, the unwrapping things. Very, very disrespectful in my book. Okay, of course, such stuff now is brought up in terms of all colonialism, all that nonsense. Okay, I go back to something deeper with the mummy stuff. Let the dead lie, let them rest, leave them alone. But the scientist in this decides he's going to do something. He's going to revive it despite being attacked. So it's kind of interesting, of course. There's feminist readings of this in the film adaptations. Take those as you will. But it's very clear that Stoker intends is that this is something to be left alone. And in the adaptations, it becomes pretty clear, okay, that this entity was evil, okay, and she wants to bring a new reign, okay. It's sort of similar if you've ever read Queen of the Damned, right? The Akasha. Definitely, Anne Rice had read this book, okay, and probably more likely she had seen the film adaptations of it with Queen Terra, particularly Blood of the Mummy's Tomb. Now, what's interesting about this, as they mentioned and as is known, is that there's two endings to this. Okay, the original ending was kind of vague, but pretty, well, you'd say grim, right? It was so grim that it was, when it was republished again, he actually wrote, just before he died, he wrote like a nicer ending, a more an ending where domesticity ruled the day. Now it's interesting, so Skal mentioned that he put that ending in there, but it was done at the request of the publisher, because people thought after reading this 311-page novel that the ending was kind of downbeat, to say the least. So the ending that was revised is a much more happy ending, let's say. Okay, although you never find out what happens to the queen. So I recommended. I love the Egyptian stuff, especially now, because it's to culturally appropriate it is seen as bad, when the whole idea was they shouldn't have been culturally appropriating things. Then again, you could argue, well, how the hell would you know about them? You leave them alone, we wouldn't know anything. It is a quandary, I will say. It is a quandary, the Faustian thing. But when it bites you on the ass, well, that's really what the horror tales are. They're a warning. Okay, and I could bring up parallels to things. In fact, and I'll show you real quick the adaptions. All right, the first adaptation of this was actually not the Blood from the Mummy's Tomb, the Hammer film. It was Curse of the Mummy. Right? I think on the BBC. It was the Thames, when it used to come up, and you see the Benny Hill show come on here in America. Apparently, this was the last episode of some like mystery horror theater that they had, Curse of the Mummy, which is the first adaptation, but it was changed a bit. Okay, and in some ways, I like what they did with this. It's shot on the old video, right? It's shot in the video, so it has some of the effects have those like you could say they're dated, but I always think they're very surreal, like the video effects. And the actress in this playing the Trelawney woman, who also plays the corpse, obviously the sleeping corpse of Queen Terra, is Isabel Black. I didn't recognize. I recognized her at some point. I said I seen her with fangs in her mouth. She was in a very underrated Hammer film, Kiss of the Vampire. Right, she was the daughter that had become vampirized by the cult. Now, a beautiful woman, very intense eyes. Apparently she's Scottish, but she comes off as English in this. Beautiful actress. And the changes done in this are very interesting. Corbeck, the character in it, does not want to revive the queen because she's evil. And it's very clear. It's kind of not really known in the novel, or it's sort of implied that this the daughter is the reincarnation of Terra, or has something to do with her, right? The whole idea was the mother died giving childbirth the night the tomb was discovered. In this, it's pretty damn clear that she is, under Terra's possession, or, just like in the film, the Hammer film. And there's a scene where she talks about, like, how wonderful, the queen was. They were afraid of her power. It sounds kind of like what you hear today. right? And the priesthood had probably a good reason to it, as Corbeck shows in this. So I kind of like that. And also the ending of this. The ending of this is sort of what I thought the ending should have been too. When a combination of the two endings, if you get what I mean. The original ending was pretty grim, but was kind of mysterious, and I wasn't really sure. You weren't really sure what happened, which is part of the mystery, which is fine. But the way they combine the two endings that for the alternate ending with this actually makes it way far more sinister. And just in general, it's just great. I love these old video, 1970s shot on video, sort of stage play kind of features. They're really. I can't get enough of them. You see how the old video, I can go on forever. But this is recommended. This is pretty cool. So shout out to this guy here for putting it on. And of course, like I said, this is the adaptation most people have not seen. Now, real quick, I've gone over this before. I usually can't go over this film enough. I had seen it on television, at least parts of it, as a kid. It was weird. It was terrifying in a lot of ways. I didn't know what was going on. Of course, they cut out a lot of the blood in it. It was Valerie Leone. I like I said, Isabel Black's a beautiful woman, and Valerie Leone is beautiful, sort of in a different way. Obviously, one show was on television, but man, she is absolutely gorgeous in this. I hate to simp out for you, but she was, and the idea of playing the dual role, okay, just like Isabel Black did in the Curse of the Mummy, is always fascinating to me. Very grisly film, very mean spirited. You're not sure what time it takes place in. It was a cursed production. I mean, everyone knows that Peter Cushing was supposed to be originally in this as the father, but just great film. I'm glad I got this edition years ago, the one they used to have with the Hammer collection. Yeah. And the ending, and to talk about the ending, right? We talk about the great scenes. How it's very bloody, you know. The scene with the guy trapped in the asylum is like, as a kid, it disturbed the hell out of me. Very well done. Okay, of course, or you could say very cheesy in some ways, because really it's just a lot of camera work that brings the intensity of that scene. But the ending of this is also interesting because it sort of does combine the endings, like the other film, the other adaptation did, but in a very different way, sort of tongue-in-cheek, but still kind of horrific and mysterious. So you can argue that the ending of this film, which was probably cobbled together by, I believe, Michael Carreras, who had to take over after the director died of a heart attack. The little bit of cheekiness added to it, combined all three. So the endings kind of combined the other ones. And with a little bit of humor after all the damn grimness on display. This is a pretty grim film. Screenplay was by Christopher Wicking, who was pretty good at writing pretty grim film plays. And that's Jewel of the Seven Stars. Yes, and they also had adopted this as a film that I haven't seen, but I remember as a kid coming out, The Awakening. Right? You could also argue that the Lucio Fulci film Manhattan Baby, okay, which I'll go over at some point, is also sort of an adaptation from this, made in response, made to cash in on that Awakening. I just haven't seen The Awakening. I really haven't seen it. I guess I'll check it out. I'm all about the Egypt and the mummies, so for some reason you'll see why.